Hello there guys, welcome back to another tutorial. In the previous video we saw how we could use select statement to query the database and filter out or get few rows. Okay, today we will work with select statement, but we are gonna see how we could do a join. So first I'm gonna start with a new project again. Um, Okay, I think in every tutorial I will create the tables, insert some values and so on, just to remind you with the steps. Okay, we'll select a new item and we're gonna select data here, and then I'm gonna select service-based database. Click add and wait a few seconds. There we go, and double click here. Next we open a sheet, SQL sheet. There we go, this one. So here I will create this one, create table, people, person ID, int primary key, and person name on varchar 30, not null, and person age, this is going to be integer. Close that, colon, and we run this and it completed successfully. Next we will insert a few records, search into people, values 0 Smith, 20 maybe. Okay, so to make things a little bit faster, it's going to be 22, 24, 27, maybe 33. We have a Smith, Todd, Michael, Linda, John. Okay, and we run this. Okay, and if we want to query the database, we have select star from people and we run this. Okay, there we go. Right, so this one works fine, no problem. Okay, so well, let us make this a little bit more complex. In some cases you might want to query or let's say you might have two tables. Okay, so here we have only one table, we have the person ID and there's some information. Now we are going to create another table, and that table will list the cars each person has. The new table will contain person ID, which identifies the person, and then the details about the car. So I'm going to create table cars. Is going to be I'm going to say car ID, integer, primary key, and we have person ID is going to be an integer and not null, and we have car model, okay, or maybe car number, okay, so the number of the car. So there's going to be an integer and this also not null. Okay, and then I will insert a few values, insert into cars values, and what are we gonna have? We're gonna have the first car, or car number 0. It will be owned by Smith and its number is maybe 1211111. Okay, and the second car as well will be owned by Smith again. So the second value is 0. This value represents the person ID and 0 represent Smith. Okay, so the number for this one is going to be all 2's, okay, for example. And yeah, well, Smith has 2 cars, Linda has 1 car, Linda, what's the number for Linda? It's a 3. Sorry, there's gonna be 2. Linda's a 3. There's gonna be all 3s or something like that. Okay, and John also have a car. John is 4. There's gonna be something like that, and 4. There's gonna be 5, something like that. And I'm gonna run this. Okay, so now select star from cars. There we go, and we run this. So here are the details of the cars. This represents the car ID or the primary key. This represents the person owning the car, and this represents the number for the car, the plate number. Okay, so now the question is, well, I have these two tables. Okay, we have the cars and people, but in order to understand the values here, I need the other table, which is people. Is there a way that I can combine these two and give the full or final result in an easy way for me to understand? Well, the answer is yes, of course you can. So you have to do what is called a join. So first I'm going to say select star from. Okay, now I will mention two tables, people and cars. Okay, and now I will run this without where statement. Now check this out. You will see that Smith this is the record for Smith has been combined with this one, and this record for Todd has been combined with the first record in cars, and the record of Michael has been combined with the first car, and Linda and John. Okay, so all all of those people have been combined with the car. Same is true for the second, right? And the same is true for third and fourth and fifth, which is not accurate. And the reason for that is we didn't specify the join condition. Because of that, the computer will try to combine each row in the first table with every possible row in the second table. In other words, each row here will be combined with all the rows here. So you'll find Smith with the first car. Again, you'll find Smith with the second car, Smith with the third car, and the fourth car, and so on, even though he doesn't own it. But if we want to make things right, this column here, which is in the people column, should equal this one here in the car column. So here, what are we going to do? We are going to add a where statement. We will say combine this, or where people dot person ID equals cars dot person ID, and we run this, and suddenly we only have how many? 5 records. And here you see that Smith has been linked with the records that he should be linked with only. So if you remember, in cars there are 2 records only for Smith, because 0 and 0 here. You see the ID here, this is 0 and this is 0, and you see the 2 cars, right? Linda has 1 car, as you can see here, and John has 2 cars. The others, like John, and not John, Michael, doesn't have any car. Okay, so he's not part of the result. So what happened here is that the computer, when you select from multiple tables, the computer is going to combine each row in the first table with every single row in the second table. Then it is going to apply the where statement. Okay, now you might be asking, well, why do I have to mention table name here? Well, the reason you need to do that because this table contains a column called person ID, which appears in the second table as well, which is person ID here. Okay, so now what if we want to remove the confusion of these columns. We don't want many columns to appear, so I'm gonna say select person name and car number. Okay, from these two tables you can see now each person with the cars that he owns. Okay, so we can combine two tables. Well, what if we have three tables? Well, that's easy. We can add the third table here and update the where condition and so on. So now let us add sorry, this was person age, right? Person age, there we go. Okay, now what if I have another question? Well, show me the cars those owners is over 30 years old. Well, that's easy. This part here is combining the two tables. I just need to add extra conditions. So here I have person age is greater than 30. So now when I run this, I see that John's having two cars and he's 33, and the car details are here. Very straightforward. Okay, so to simplify things on yourself, think about it like this. When you are joining two tables, it's like, it's a simple select statement with the table names is available here separated by a comma. You will need to find a way to combine these two tables, and in other words, you will need to identify the column that will be used to combine these two tables. Usually that column will be a primary key in one and a foreign key in another. I don't think I explained the foreign key, but for now the idea is as simple as that. Okay, so let us cover another example. Okay, so I will use the designer here to make things a little bit easier for me. So in my college years, the first examples we took regarding databases is an example about suppliers. There are a number of suppliers who supply different parts to different projects and so on. So we are going to try to do something like that. Okay, so here supplier ID is going to be an integer, it's a primary key. We have supplier name. This is going to be a varchar, doesn't allow null. Okay, so we have this simple table. Okay, and the table name is going to be suppliers, and I don't want this to be case sensitive, so I'm going to make this as simple as that. Okay, and now I will just update the database. Okay, and update it. I think if I refresh now, I see the suppliers table. So I'm gonna fill the values, okay, using this designer right away. So the first supplier is gonna be Todd, and the second supplier Michael. Third one is John. Okay, and now we need to define another thing here. We need to define parts. Okay, so here what do we have? We have part ID. This is going to be, sorry, part name. Okay, so it's kind of similar to the previous one. Okay, let me see. Let me just remove these. Remove that, and remove that. No problem. And I'm gonna update it. Update the database. Okay. So yeah. So now I'm gonna refresh this one. So now we have what? We have suppliers and parts. Okay. So I'm gonna show the table data. And the first part is gonna be what? Is gonna be let's say someone this part is for bricks. Okay, others steel, pipes. Okay, sorry, steel. Oh, is there something wrong here? Pipe. Okay, and the third one, oh, it was the column size. I choose 10, so this column is too, it doesn't accept large strings. Anyway, well, I should have noticed that. Anyway, so what also do we have? We have, let's say, window frame. Okay, so it's kind of long. I'll make this win frame. Okay, so a window frame, something like that. Fourth, well, maybe what other parts? Cement. Sorry if the spelling's wrong. Yeah, grammar. Anyway, so what other things? Well, maybe doors and so on. So these parts are related kind of to construction, right? And we have suppliers, and now we need to have a table that will tell us which supplier, the suppliers who provide parts, right? So here I'm gonna say, the new table. Okay, now this one's gonna be what? There's gonna be, we have QTY for quantity, okay? And this is gonna be QTY ID, okay? Or maybe supplier ID, okay? And what do we have? Also, we have part ID is going to be integer and also not null. And also, what do we need to do? We have supplier ID, part ID. We need to specify the QTY or QTY is going to be integer. It's going to be not null. So yeah. So each supplier supplying a part, a quantity of that specific part. Now I'm gonna select these two. If I remember correctly, I'm gonna say set as primary key. Now check this out. You can actually select multiple columns and make them primary key. So now if the supplier value get repeated, no problem. If the part ID get repeated, no problem. But if the combination of supplier and part ID get repeated, the database management system will reject that. Okay, so the primary key now consists of two columns. Okay. Anyway, so now I'm gonna update that. I'm gonna say update database. Okay, that's wonderful. And now I'm gonna refresh this. That's nice. And now I'm gonna say what show table data. So for the first supplier, he's gonna supply the first part 100 for the first supplier. Is gonna supply the second part 200 for the second supplier. Is gonna supply the first with 120, and well, the second supplier is gonna supply the third part 400, and the second supplier is going to supply the fourth part 100, or maybe 50 or 40, something like that. The third supplier is going to supply, well, part number 2, maybe 10. The third supplier is going to supply part number 3, maybe 20. And a third supplier is going to supply part number 5. Did I make them 5? I'm not sure. 30. Okay, so we got this table. So now what we have three tables. We have the parts table, we have the quantity table, and the suppliers table. And we need to kind of combine them in order to have a full view. The information has been split into these three tables, and the reason for splitting them, you might be wondering why I don't create a single table that contains all that information. Well, the reason is simplification and better performance later on. Simplification comes from the fact that if you, for example, uh, combine all these tables together, it will be very hard for the database management system to do updates. If you change the supplier name, all the table or most of the table will need to be updated. However, if you split the information to multiple tables, when you are updating a name, you just one table get affected, not the whole database. Okay, uh, yeah. So that's kind of the basic idea, but there are more good reasons regarding that. If you want to understand more about databases, they used a book by there was a book by, I think his name was C.J. Dates, about database systems, or an introduction to database systems. I think that was the name of the book. We read that at university, and it was a very good book. Yeah, it explained things very clearly. Anyway, so going back to our example, let us now write a SQL statement that combines these three tables. Okay, so I'm gonna close these guys, okay, to reduce the number of windows that are visible. Okay, so here I'm gonna say select star from wait a second, from, I'm gonna make this I'm gonna make it like this: suppliers, parts, and the QTY. And I'm gonna run this, and I see this table, but check out the number of values. Too many values, right? But this is not the correct way to look at them. Why? Because the computer gets every record from here, combine it with every record from in this table and every record with this table. So it's getting all the possible combinations. What we need to do is add a where part where we specify how these tables should be linked correctly. Now, how do you link these tables? There is nothing in common between suppliers and parts, but there is something in common between suppliers and a quantity, and something that is common between parts and a quantity. And the common thing is supplier ID between these two and part ID between these two. So now we are gonna combine these. So where, what do we have? I'm gonna say suppliers dot supplier ID, okay, equals QTY dot supplier ID. So this is the first condition, or the first part of the first condition of the join. And now we are gonna speak about the parts table. Parts dot part ID, there we go, equals QTY dot part ID. Okay, so now, by the way, you see when I'm mentioning columns with the same name, mentioning the table first, followed by the dot, and I'm doing this because I must help the compiler or the database management system understand what I mean when I say supplier ID. Am I meaning the one in the quantity table or the one in the suppliers? So this removes confusion. Okay, so now I set the filter, and now I'm gonna run this, and I get smaller table, but this one is now correct. So I see that Todd supplies bricks with a quantity 100, and Todd also supplies steel pipes with quantity 200. Okay, and you might be asking, well, how can I make sure that this is correct? Well, basically, these two columns comes of the first column and the second column comes from the supplier table. You can see the supplier ID here. It matches exactly the supplier ID here. So I have this one here, one here, one here, two here, two here, and so on. And this is because of this condition. The next thing you might be wondering, well, what about the parts? How can I make sure that it combined the part correctly? Well, this part here is exactly the same as this one here, right? And again, the reason for that is, well, because you wrote, or I just wrote this one here. So this is how you combine two or three tables together. This is a join. Now, what if I want to reduce the number of columns? Well, basically, you specify supplier name. Now, I don't need to specify the table name because there is only one table that contains the column supplier name. Okay, same is true for part name, and same true for quantity QTY. And I'm gonna run this now, and I can see now the columns. It's much clearer this way for me. What about the IDs? Well, the IDs will help the database management system, but usually they don't help the end user much. In many cases, the end user doesn't see the primary key values. The database management system sees these values, or the developer will see these values a lot. Okay, so here from table I can see that Todd supplies bricks, steel pipes, Michael supplies bricks, window frames, and cement. John supplies doors, window frames, and steel pipes, and so on. So I hope that's very straightforward for you guys. It's not that difficult. Okay, now there is more to speak about regarding SQL. You can join a table with itself. You can have something called subqueries and so on. But I don't want to go into these details a lot. I just want you to understand the basic things that we need. In the next video, we will stop speaking about select statements and joins. We will focus on delete statement when we want to remove some data. Okay, and later on we will speak about updating it. After that, I will stop. I won't cover SQL in much detail. If you want to do so, you can search other tutorials, but I want to give you idea here, because later on when we will work with when we are going to work with database, we will need to know a little bit about SQL. Okay, and this is why I'm doing these. Okay, so I hope you find this useful. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.